The voice of sharing, 旅人的香。
ASEAN Breakfast Call. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And we are back again from a long weekend. And also the schools is opening for all the students of Malaysia to resume their classes.
It's the students who actually had a long holiday for one whole week. We only had 2 days.
Yeah, good for the students.
I guess that's the best part about being in school and still being a student.
And around the world, a lot of things are happening, including in Malaysia. Apparently, Gerakan is seeking to revive One Malaysia concept.
But the problem is the way they want to do it is by saying that we want to garner support from the Chinese and Indian communities. And Malaysia is not just about Malay, Chinese, and Indian. And as long as they keep thinking of it that way, it's not going to happen. You cannot have one Malaysia when you're still segregating the communities.
Well, perhaps they have a different understanding on One Malaysia itself. Around the world, in our own borders, currently Singapore is banning a film that is kind of controversial in their own land.
Yes, and because the Singaporeans cannot view it over there, they are coming over to Malaysia over the weekend to view it here.
A number of them actually went to Johor shores to watch the film called To Singapore with Love. And that film itself is very controversial, partly because it somehow talk about Singapore's controversial past, where there were a huge friction between the government of the day of Singapore and also between the Communist Party members itself. And around the world also, someone is achieving independence.
Actually, they choose not to go for independence.
My God. I totally miss out on that particular news. But they were racing towards independence, and the poll were very tight. It was almost 50-50 on both sides. But when it comes to the voting itself, the Scottish people has spoken up. Apparently, they really want to be part of United Kingdom.
It was pretty shocking to the whole world because it seems that Scotland were pretty positive about it. A lot of people, a lot of celebrities even were tweeting on Twitter, on Facebook, saying that, yes, we want our independence, we want to separate from United Kingdom. But when the results came out, it was otherwise. It seems that most of them didn't want to be independent.
It's such an irony. If you go to any Scottish expat in Malaysia, if you tell them, if you discuss with them about Scottish independence, they would be very emotional about it, and they would be like, yeah, we should have an independent state. But it seems like on the long term, overall, the Scottish people are pretty comfortable, perhaps, with the coalition United Kingdom itself.
And one person who will not be happy about that is William Wallace, who fought so hard for their independence, and now it seems that Scotland is going against its own independence.
Perhaps next time, who knows? And around the world, we have a lot of interesting news in ASEAN, but let's start with Malaysia first. So Islamic State, ISIS, is a huge threat in all over the world, especially within the Western countries. If you look at the news, they are definitely going to go against this country, this militant group. But at the same time, they try not to totally involve themselves within the Middle Eastern region. While in Southeast Asia, it seems like the Islamic State have siphoned themselves into the Southeast Asian borders. A few of the members, including Malaysians itself, Malay Malaysians, have joined the ISIS to fight for an independent Islamic State. And with this, Hishammuddin have warned Sabah must be alert against Islamic State militants.
And the reason for this warning is that there have been a lot of active ISIS activities in the southern Philippines. And southern Philippines is, of course, very, very close to Sabah. And we also had a lot of issues with that in the past, with the Abu Nawas group coming in and claiming the borders, kidnapping people. So it's only rational for us to start worrying, because their network is pretty much spreading around southern Philippines, and at any time, any moment, it can always spread to Sabah and threaten Malaysia in that way. But he has also, of course, said that they are stepping up security around the borders of Sabah in order to prevent any such activity from happening.
But at the same time, this is what he said. They are not trying, he and the government itself are not trying to scare Sabahans. But this is the fact that a far greater threat than kidnappings, I'm sure he's referring to the Mindanao issue, and cross-border crimes. And he said after the opening of the Penampang annual UMNO division meeting, it seems like the whole area security issue in Sabah is more complex than it seems. It used to be just kidnappings by the Mindanao's separatist groups, but for the Abu Sayyaf obviously. But right now it's much more complicated, and that somehow the Sulu people are also part of this kidnapping issue. So it's a whole new ball game altogether if ISIS is in this region itself functioning.
And it also gets tougher when they are not included in our One Malaysia plan, because then any attempts made by the government will only cover most of the peninsula, and it's very rare that they actually make the effort to reach out to that extent of Malaysia, and they have to start paying more attention to Sabah, because it's very, very susceptible to any outside threat being so out on the borders, and we need to start paying attention to it. Otherwise, the entire country could be threatened.
Mm-hmm. And also Sabah, as we all know, Sabah, as we all know, is rich in oil and other natural resources. So protecting the interests of Sabahan people, and also Sabah as a part of the Federation of Malaysia, is definitely the most important part of the thing, a part of responsibility that the government needs to look into. Next off, we have news related to Menteri Besar crisis. It seems like it's never ending. The back and forth of throwing balls together
but
to choose for the Menteri
Besar. Be the verdict day, right? And the Sultan is going to announce his decision later today. But at the same time, PKR is still being stubborn, still saying that it wants Wan Aziza and no other names will be accepted.
The interesting part of this is never a time in our lives as a constitutional monarchy having a sultan to make a decision on the nomination itself. As the sultan, in the past, even Mahathir has spoken about it. It's always the responsibility of the state assembly man, and also the responsibility of the government of that particular state to choose who should be the reigning Menteri Besar of that particular state as well.
And this thing started in January this year, if I'm not wrong. And it's still ongoing, and everyone's been waiting for the results. It's in the news every day, and they submitted a couple of names, and apparently the Sultan is not happy. And he mentioned pretty clearly, though, that he didn't want Wan Aziza in the list. And yet, he narrowed it down to two names, and PKR still wants Wan Aziza to be in the list of possible next Menteri Besar.
The issue is pretty complicated, partly because on the Sultan and also a couple of other campsites is that Wan Aziza nomination or election to be the next Menteri Besar could spell a huge issue regarding on nepotism, and definitely the Sultan do not want nepotism to be at hand here. But at the same time, Anwar Ibrahim has also said that if the Sultan have nominated Azmin Ali to be the next to be one of the candidates for the next Menteri Besar, he would say yes as well. So it seems like it's between Azmin Ali and also Wan Aziza, another candidate from PKR.
And it seems like the Sultan, like you mentioned earlier, that he's making the decision as opposed to calling for a state election, maybe because this is how we do things usually. When somebody steps down and somebody gets sacked, we call for a state election, and then the people get to decide. It's not usually that the party submits a few names and then the sultan has the final say in this, and that's the crux of this problem that is further complicating this issue. And later today, when he actually announces his decision, there is bound to be a lot more controversy and probably an expression of dissatisfaction from PKR.
Perhaps we are a bit biased here because we do want to have a woman Menteri Besar in Malaysia. But at the same time, the issue is pretty complex, where the issue involving nepotism and also the issue involving the Sultan to somehow meddle the state issue is somehow the reason why the Selangor Menteri Besar issue shouldn't have arise at all. When it comes to the PKR headquarters, it seems like they are definitely staunch on the issue. They want Azizah to be part of, to be the candidate for the Menteri Besar, and the problem is the people of Selangor is pretty divided on this. You are from Penang, obviously, but for the people of Selangor, they just want to have a Menteri Besar regardless who it is.
But the problem with that is also because Wan Azizah is not actually from Selangor itself, and that's why a lot of people are not also happy about that decision. And like you mentioned also that it could perpetuate cronyism and other problems like she's not good enough, or of course the most obvious fact, which is that she's a woman. And we are still living with all these biases within us, but there are also a group of people, according to a statistic here, that they are actually not happy with PKR itself.
Mm-hmm. The removal or the sudden removal of Tan Sri Khalid Ibrahim is definitely one of the reasons. Khalid Ibrahim has always have a positive image when it comes to the way he does things as an administrator of this state, but at the same time, when it comes to popularity within the party itself, he's not that popular, and the party has accused him of corruption charges.
And other than that, they also, but there are also a lot of people who actually wanted Khalid Ibrahim to stay, which did not happen, of course. But he was linked to a lot of scandals that was happening, especially in terms of the water crisis, that he did not manage it properly as he should have.
Mm-hmm. According to the statistic by this website called polytweet.org, the statistics shows that the majority of the people, of course, they have no opinion about it, but if you want to talk about making a decision on this, majority of them want to keep Tan Sri Khalid to be the Menteri Besar. Seems like removal of Tan Sri Khalid is not really a popular move by PKR among the people in Selangor.
And according to the same poll, if you look at it, there are more people who wanted to keep Tan Sri Khalid Ibrahim as opposed to people who were actually against him and wanted him removed.
Mm-hmm. Majority of those who are against him are partly they are part of the party itself. If you're talking about layman's view, they do not have opinion of it, or they have positive opinion about Tan Sri Khalid. So to a lot of Selangor people, they just want a Menteri Besar to govern Selangor. That's it. Let's move on to a news that is pretty harsh when it comes to the law itself. So as we all know, Aceh is an autonomous region within Indonesia. It has in the past, it has a very bad relationship with the Indonesian government, and for many years the separatist group have been fighting for their own independence until it came to the 2004 tsunami. Then they realized that perhaps they can still be part of Indonesia, but they can form their own government as in an autonomous state. So Aceh has been having their own government, their own law to govern their own people. And with that came the Sharia law. And as we all know, Aceh, the Muslim in Aceh are pretty staunch in terms of their belief in Islam. Hence, they want to have Islam as part of their political as part of their democracy and their politics. This is why we have the news today. So Indonesian Aceh is proposing 100 lashes for gay sex. Gay.
And Aceh is, like you mentioned, is only part of the world's biggest Muslim majority nation to enforce this Islamic Sharia law, and has been slowly implementing it since 2001. But this is a pretty harsh sentence for gay sex. But then again, it goes back to it's a parallel situation to Brunei, where they adopted the Sharia law and pretty much were giving out the same sentences, and that of course drew a huge outcry from all over the world, especially the United States, because the King of Brunei is quite actively involved in businesses over there. And now Aceh is following suit in that.
LGBT or gay, gay, lesbian, transsexual, transgender, and also gay sexual. What's the
Well,
what's the acronym
lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender.
Transgender. So for all these, for all those who don't fit into the proper, assuming proper male and female gender, a lot of religion are not really happy about, are not really sanctioning or happy about the concept of LGBT. To them, a lot of major religion, not all, but a lot of them, usually would see it's either you are male or female. That's it. Even if you are a transgender, it's either you are a transgender female or transgender male. This is according to, of course, in some Muslim countries, they do allow transgender, for example, Iran. But in the case of Aceh, Aceh has always been very staunch in its religion and Sharia law. In the past, it legislated a lot of different laws. For example, alcohol consumption, banning of alcohol consumption, gambling, fraternizing between unmarried men and women, and physical display of affection outside of marriage, as well as you are not allowed to wear certain clothing, for example, tight, skinny jeans. And when it comes to the punishment, 100 lashes for gay sex, this is, as we all see, it is definitely a very, very harsh punishment.
But if you look at the 100 lashes punishment, even 1 or 2 lashes is pretty much almost causing some people's death. They cannot even take 5 at most. And how do you go about giving people 100 lashes?
Pudu jail used to be a museum before it's now being demolished for development. So Pudu, when I was a child, so I still remember visiting Pudu jail. And Pudu jail itself, when it was a museum opening for exhibition to visitors, it somehow showed to people how the process of caning happened, and they use really thick canes to cane those who are convicted for rape and other crimes related. And it is really harsh that it actually peel off the skin itself, that you can see blood oozing out from the skin. When it comes to the Sharia concept of lashing, it might be a bit different according to some ulama. They might use a leaner cane. They might not hit as hard as hitting those who are convicted for the civil law crimes. So it might be different, it seems.
But even if it is a crime, gay sex, if it is seen a crime in Aceh in terms of from the Muslim Islam perspective, from the Sharia law perspective, they could still opt for something a little more accommodating or a little more subtle, like counseling.
The right question is, why even punish gay sex?
Well, that goes back to religion, and when it comes to religion, it's always hard to reason things out.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to gay sex, it's really dumbfounding religion would go that far, or perhaps not religion, but those who profess the religion would go that far to punish those people. That's a question that we need to answer, probably by ASEAN or in the larger context of Southeast Asia. And talking about ASEAN, there's also a huge issue that ASEAN is facing right now, the same as United States and Europe, which is ISIS. So ASEAN need a comprehensive response to ISIS rather than just individual country either sanctioning or banning the idea of ISIS itself. But ASEAN itself has not been very vocal about this.
Well, Indonesia has spoken out about it, and so has the Philippines, because there have been very active activities going on around there.
But a lot of Indochina countries, for example, Vietnam, has not been speaking out loudly enough on this.
And even in Malaysia, of course, there was a lot of hoo-has going on during the Israel and Gaza time. But now for ISIS, of course, it's equally heavy as well, and it's not safe for the country. But there's not been as much vocal expression towards or opposing ISIS in that sense. And we do need to speak out, not just as Malaysia, but get together as ASEAN, because it's slowly seeping its way through the countries here. We know that some Malaysians have been involved in this, some Chinese have been involved in this from China, and
in fact, all over the world, you can find members they are part of the members of ISIS. ISIS is not just another regional or transnational organization. It's a global movement, and the problem with ISIS is it somehow claimed legitimacy of an idea of one caliph, and with the idea of one caliph, all Muslims should somehow accept that ISIS is a legitimate organization that pushes for Islamic State.
And of course, again, they can of course go and establish their own Islamic State and all, but not by killing off people who have other beliefs, who have other ideologies in life. And as we reported last week, they are also targeting the Pope now, because the Pope is the leader of all the Christians in the world, and they feel like if they kill the Pope, all the other Christians would just die off, and they can have the Islamic State that they've been coveting.
Sorry, I was laughing. But yeah, talking about the Pope, I don't want to mention it, but talking about the Pope, if they kill another one, they will elect another one, because the Pope is not there forever. There will always be the position there. The position of Pope is definitely somehow a permanent position, but the person holding the position is definitely keep on changing depending on who is the right person to be the Pope. And when it comes to ASEAN, let's talk about ASEAN now. As we all know, ASEAN is an organization that focuses more on economic integration and social mobility. When it comes to security, of course, the focus would be more on the issues on South China Sea, or the issue between countries in Southeast Asia. But when it comes to terrorism in a sense of Islamic State, it is not that vocal enough, and it is important for ASEAN to push for it, because ASEAN destiny, of course, remains on the people of Southeast Asia, and ASEAN community itself means that it needs peace and stability within the society of Southeast Asia.
And we are probably inexperienced in this matter too, because it's not always that we have this outside threat coming in, that we have all these terrorist influence or terrorist attacks or threats, and that's probably why we are not being as active as we should, because we definitely should be more aggressive. We should handle this like it's just a very serious issue, but it's not coming across that way. Yes, people know, there's ISIS and it's dangerous, but most people are still not aware of the intensity or the way that they're doing things around here.
As we all know, Southeast Asia is a very religious region, whatever religion it is, and if there's no check and balance when it comes to religion, a lot of conflict will happen, and it already happened in Malaysia when it comes to the conflict between Muslim and Buddhist. And I'm talking about the Myanmar immigrants here. A number of them were murdered in a violent conflict between Buddhists and Muslim.
And these concerns have been expressed over the safety of Myanmar's 1.5 million migrant laborers who are in Malaysia. and following the grisly murders of more than 20, mostly Myanmar workers over the last 15 months, in what observers believe could be killings linked to the Buddhist-Muslim violence in the western Myanmar's Rakhine state.
Only recently, there's a number of protests happening in Myanmar in regards to what is happening in Rakhine State, as reported by BBC Burma. And it seems like it is really getting from bad to worse. And with the killing of 20 people in Malaysia on a conflict that is remotely far from Malaysia, shows that how bad it is, the relations between Myanmar Buddhists and Myanmar Muslim.
And it also goes back to their prime minister. You can't help but to wonder when there are so many Myanmar workers in Malaysia, nearly 1.5 million of them. Isn't their government doing anything to protect the rights of these workers in a foreign country? Like, what are their foreign policy like? What are their ways to protect these people in case they get killed or they are abused or what?
Malaysian government definitely need to be attentive towards the policy of its neighboring countries, because whatever that is happening in its neighboring country can have a spillover effects. And this spillover effects is happening now with the killing of more than 20 Myanmar migrant laborers. And this is what is being told from the Myanmar side. B1 is for Myanmar President Thein Sein and his government to directly pressure the Malaysian government to work on these cases. If not, they won't help us. Malaysian police announced that they are trying to arrest the perpetrator, but since the first killing in May 2013, people from Myanmar have been murdered each month and no one has been arrested so far. So even within Malaysian government itself, the security and the law has been very lax when it comes to the rights of these Myanmar laborers.
And of course, that has a lot of factors too. The fact that most of them came here not through valid ways, and they may not have their passport with them to lodge a complaint. Or even when you do, I guess we cannot discard the fact that the Myanmar workers are not regarded highly in this country, and that could also be one of the factors that the government is being very passive. And there are a huge number of them, and when these killings happen, of course they feel like it's kind of inevitable. It's you come into this country, you are risking your own life. So when something like this happens, we're not responsible for it. But of course we have to pay attention to all these lives that are being lost, because it goes back to how we perceive human rights itself and protect it.
Mm-hmm. With that, that's the news for today. We hope that you enjoy listening to our news. If yes, please go to our Facebook and Twitter and comment on our news for today, and also all the other segments that we have today for ABC Dialogue, as well as Blast from the Grassroots. This is Arlene signing off.
This is Gowri.